starting to unravel, unbraid my own hair. See it? It's just a mess. Yes, it is. I look like a vagabond with this hair every which way, and yet I don't even care about that. Let me turn this air conditioner off so that I can actually think and process, because I can't think when there's distractions such as that. So turn it off. Now powering down. So let me scoot my chair up just a little bit. There we go. So I'm able to see things at all sides. Yes, at all angles. I'm in fact able to see things at all angles visually. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't. I've been told that it could be bad, because usually as people are seeing things one way, I'm seeing it 3 different other ways. Because for one person to look at something, I'm saying straightforward, is to know there's 3 other sides to that. Maybe top and bottom, forward and back as well. Who knows? But I'm looking at it more in the abstraction of where they don't even see. Yes. So remember when I was speaking on, the reason why I said that could be good or bad is because I can be brutally honest as well as brutally blunt. And that offends people in the process, because sometimes I speak out my mouth instead of being cowardly based upon just what I see, even as I'm standing there. I mean, we can be anywhere, in the grocery store, Walmart, anywhere, and I just speak what I feel. That's just me. I mean, that's me. That's my character. That's my personality. I'm not going to change that, and I don't want to change that, because to change something and become a clone is to just be that, right? There's not enough individuals standing out in the first place, because to have one person march in line with all the rest of the individuals, such as sheep marching in line, is to become just that, as in a follower. Moving on. So what I was saying about seeing things visually at an angle, and even sometimes in broad daylight, or even maybe at night, despite me not even being, say, on anybody's crime scene or territory or in a whole different state, because see, North Carolina is completely outside of where I live. Based upon hours, I will have to calculate even that. I think where I'm at right now is possibly 13 hours away. Or would it be more? 13 hours away, or possibly much more than that, or maybe less, and the distance and the feet and all that, right? But being visually oriented, I can pull apart that. And I stated how many times, as in, say, with the eyewitness. I want to go back to that green car. I didn't make notes for this video, because to just elaborate in a freestyle nature is to do just that. As in, to use your brain, where it might not even be well thought out yet. Like before. I should have written something before is what I'm trying to say, and yet to not allow that sort of thing to happen is to, in fact, play with my own brain, as in trying to see what can I make sense of the angle aspect of not what I stated before, but pertaining to the visualization, as in a dead stop. A dead stop. Who has the right of way pertaining to a dead stop? And I don't mean, say, a hit or miss, or a hit and go, or a hit and moving on, or trailing along, as I stated in the other video about trailing behind that green, supposedly Lincoln Green Continental. It was stated in the documentation, 1973 Lincoln Continental to be specific, or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Those two individual cars, yes, pointing like this, as even the police put on the photo, pointing like that, those 2 cars look somewhat similar. And would even look more similar possibly in the dark at night. I can see with even my own 2 eyes sitting here with even shades and sunglasses on that, of how they were looking similar in the photo that I looked. With Asia's pictures, yes. the was it the child, the when you do the progression of how she may have looked, say today or a few years back, right? See, I'm not timid in even that, as in trying to figure out. So let me think, because to not have notes is to try to figure out where to start, and even that, as in, let me go back, as in the marker, let's go back. So not the marker at the shed, no, as in the marking, as in the footing of, say, where some car could have maybe set. See, look, the angular, because remember when I stated in my other video about, say, seeing things at all sides as a hood of the car as well as the back of the car, pertaining to the motion of, say, if that car that saw as an eyewitness was, say, an oncoming vehicle, that in itself presents evidence detail pertaining to the motion, as in the size of even that driver and the speed and the impact on the vision, right? But to push that to the side is to look at something from a stopping nature. I'm trying to think, because see, I don't know, see that map, whoever did the map, as in put the shed and everything there on Google Maps, somebody actually traced it, as in marked it, so you could be able to identify, yes, and that, as in the shed, Asia's home, as well as her school, Foston. What else was documented on there? Everything was marked specifically as it should be, right? And so with me saying that, I'm wondering in relation to how the eyewitness could have seen that car, as in them tipping off the police with that car. Because it's been stated that the police knew about the cars years back, but who knows? So supposedly around 2015, 2016 is when they put the car out there as the FBI, police, FBI. I consider them one and the same, because to work together and nobody knows about it is to just say that part, right? Who's doing what and why. But going back to Highway 18. Highway 18 as in the stopping, the footing, the pinpoint and everything with that, as in a vehicle, say, not being an oncoming vehicle on that 1973 Lincoln Continental or 1973 Ford Thunderbird. Say if the eyewitness wasn't an oncoming car, right? Whichever direction pertaining to that. If, say, that eyewitness wasn't an oncoming car, or say not even a trailing along, there has to be a way that that eyewitness had to see that the wheel wells were in fact rusted, right? And so I was walking back and forth in the house. I'm thinking to myself, maybe the eyewitness was at a whole different opposite directions, such as a stopping. So when I say that, does Highway 18 somewhere in that 1.3 miles, is say that is a place where the stopping point where, say, an eyewitness said they seen Asia get into a green car, is there a stopping point in that? As in somebody pulling up on a car. You know how intersections meet and yet there's a dead end on the other side? Or on this side? There would have to be some type of dead end, I'm thinking, for there to be woods right along Highway 18 like that. I'm thinking on either side there has to be at least a road that comes and then you stop and then you can either turn left and right, but you can't go straight, and yet woods in fact meet you, which is why you can't go straight, right? And not only that, there would in fact be signs telling you in which direction you're going. So it could be highway, it could say 80 or 90 or 100 or something. It may say Highway 18 and then have an 80, 90 or whatever. Even that points to degrees in relation to mileage and all that other stuff. So I'm in question of that. I should have made notes for this one. But seeming we have none, all we have is my brain to go off of. As in the sizing up. So if I was an eyewitness, and I pulled up, boom, I'm driving along in whatever vehicle and I'm an eyewitness and I pull up like boom. And there's signs right here that meet me On either, I'm thinking they will be on the right side and not on the left side, because that's off. I've traveled enough to even know that where signs are usually located, they're usually located on the right and not on the left of you, depending on the angular of the road. So you're pulling up, coming up to Highway 18. Boom, I'm sitting there. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking before me will possibly be what? A dead end, maybe? A dead end. And all that is there is maybe tree matter on the other side. It's tree matter, so I'm not going to be able to go straight. I would have to turn left, or I would have to turn left, or I would have to turn right. I only have two options in that. And this is all depending on how I'm going to get on, say, Highway 18, if that eyewitness did that. Because even if I wasn't coming from this direction, and say I was coming from the opposite direction, possibly the same thing. Or there could be more where you could actually pass through. But it depends on, I'm saying there, I can come up to the road and be in the opposite direction, come up to Highway 18 and say there's in fact a cross through, as in me able to cross over Highway 18 and continue forward on the road. It depends on the glance, as in how this eyewitness was able to see the abstraction, and even that, say going forward and seeing a child possibly there make their way into the arms of, say, a vehicle sitting there, not completely in the arms, but in the space of where the driver sits, awaiting that child to get in. So if I wasn't a eyewitness, oncoming, I'm trying to put myself, see, in order to try to see something visually, you have to see yourself there. And not only that, if an eyewitness was involved, you have to look at it from their perspective, which is why I'm able to go as far, and even this, creating videos. So if I'm an eyewitness and I pull up to something, say I pull up and there's in fact signs right there that await me on the right side of my passenger side, right before the hood of my car, or right next to the hood, right? I will have to sit and possibly turn left or right. And as I'm sitting there, I will more likely see at a glance a way that a child is making her way into a vehicle, right? A green Lincoln Continental, Ford Thunderbird, whatever, 1973. So as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, this being an eyewitness, is that a young child making her way into a car with an adult at this time? But see, I'm wondering right here, as I question that angle right there, I'm wondering how is the eyewitness able to even see that that is a child? Because see, to pull up to something, I'm pulling up, boom. I'm able to possibly see the wheel wells on the car, but I'm not going to be able to see the child depending on what side of the road she's standing on. So if she was standing on, say, the side where on the opposite side of the road than where I'm at, pulling up, and then say she if I go to turn like that, she would in fact be on this side. But say she's on the actual side of my side, as in the driver's side, coming this way as I'm going to make that left turn, Asia would in fact be on my side, as me being able to make out the description of the car as well as the wheel well. Does that or does that not make sense? As in, depending on how far back, because see, even darkness plays a part in that. Me being able to string forward or backward in my thought, that holds potential as well, being able to unlock certain things. So depending on how far back Asia was, to even that driver that said that they seen her, the eyewitness seen her getting into the car, we have to see, well, how far back was Asia if she was on the side? This is the driver, the eyewitness, right? He would possibly make a left or maybe a right. But if he was that nosy, if it was me, I would in fact make a left just to see if that was a child getting into the car, because it looks suspicious. And when I make a left, I'm going to in fact be turning on to the road and possibly looking again to see if that's an adult or whatever driving that car, for that child to get in the car at that time in the first place. But once again, to be an eyewitness and say look at something from afar is to know either light or darkness is even in that. As in, where is the next lighting guidepost, street light pole to light up even that, because the distance plays in even that, as in you being able to see what you thought you might have seen or maybe not. Because if you are an eyewitness sitting at an intersection, that is in fact a intersection, whether it's a real world or not. You have to stop in order to cross over into something, right? But if you stop right there and say there's no light right there, and even your headlights will have to be able to meet and match the location of that car. Even if it's far back, even for your headlights to even shine abroad where it's dim, to light up even the wheel wells itself, and possibly a little 9-year-old child making her way into the car. Because see, if no lighting is there, as in the light post, then how are you even seeing her in the first place? Dear eyewitness, something has to glow in the form of darkness, or even you even pulling up to a highway, seeing some little 9-year-old child get into a green getaway car. That's just common sense, right? Logic and reasoning as well. Where's some ink pens at? I got one right here. This ink pen is in fact green itself. How interesting is that? Let me see. So, let me try and pull them thicker. Wow, I found another one. Okay, so let me think. Okay. Does that point in your direction? I'm trying to think, because see, to see stuff from an angle, trying to see if I can see this backwards when I break it down. In reverse, I mean, because I view a lot of things in reverse and not forward, right? And so you see that, the mark, and I don't mean mark of the beast. So this may or may not work, because intersection would have to possibly play into that, I'm thinking, because I'm wondering, how is an eyewitness able to see wheel wells in the first place, knowing that it gets pitch black out there, pointing into speed 55 miles an hour. I just use that as the speed might be much more higher than that, and that's going to in fact impact as well. But if rain, you will want to in fact slow down, right? And so in me saying that, I'm just in question of that. So this right here, this first ink pen would in fact be, say, an eyewitness, right? An eyewitness. This ink pen might represent the wooded area at the 1.3 miles, right? So if I was a eyewitness and I drove up, this is in fact to the intersection, because the woods would in fact be on the other side of this drawing, depending on how you're pulling up. Like I said before, depending on the angle, the direction, and all that. So this represents the intersection, the woods and all that, and that would in fact be on the right side. But you looking at this in the sense of reverse, I'm trying to look at it in reverse. And so this represents the eyewitness pulling up. So say if Asia was on this side, right? Because I'm holding this pen like this. Say if they pulled up on Highway 18, and this is the middle point, the intersection, right? And say that driver saw Asia on the side of them where, say, the eyewitness is going to in fact make a left turn. A car in which Asia is getting into has to be sitting there or something, just to make out some, well, I said make out some, probably because I kept talking about the girls and the makeup, but possibly, okay, so if your eyewitness turning onto Highway 18 and say you are able to see wheel wells, you will possibly be what, at an intersection? You might in fact turn left depending on how nosy you are, many are, turn left. So you would in fact be going in the direction of, say, where she's getting into the car. You just made a left hand turn. And this is the right side, right? Because Asia will be getting in on passenger. Wherever she get in, it will have to include passenger side. So the eyewitness coming in, making that turn. But in a sense, that eyewitness would in fact have to go around the car. Does that make sense? Depending on how quickly Asia got into the car, how long the car sat there, as in also how nosy that eyewitness was and looking into and trying to scope out and all that other stuff. I'm thinking if you came to an intersection complete stop, if you didn't turn right and go in the opposite direction, then you may in fact have turned left. And you would, depending on the angle of the car sitting there, you might have to actually in fact go around that car. Because see, a car that big is going to take up half of the road in the first place, right? Anybody that know about classic cars would in fact know that sort of thing. You can ask any old man or, I don't think woman. I don't think that, but I'm just thinking, because I said my dad had a Cadillac Eldorado back in the day. Yes, he did. Used to shine it and wax it down, everything. And not only that, he worked on cars. So for a car to be that big, it's to know it's going to take up half of the road. And so whoever may be taking a left turn to get on the same road as that individual, it's to say that eyewitness might in fact be hanging outside of the marker and being in, yes, going in the wrong direction in a sense. If say an oncoming car was to come up on them and say, well, why are they in my lane? And they might possibly blow the horn for them to move to get back in the proper lane. So they will be right in front of, say, the car Asia was in. It all depends on the angle. But I got to go back to, if the eyewitness say this is the intersection right here, and say Asia them, if Asia was getting in the car and say she was getting in the car and say going, this is the intersection where you stop at, right? And Asia's going to go, say, possibly in the opposite, away from home. If she was getting in at 1.3 miles and she's going to go away from home, then she more than likely will go this way, right? But the intersection still sits as in the woods and all else. So she would get in the car possibly and be going this way, right? This way. And so if the eyewitness is looking at all from a distance, we still need to know how far away the next light post was pertaining to even that, because see, to be something in pitch black and there's no light post there is to say, how could the eyewitness have even seen the wheel wells in itself? Because you need lighting for even that if you're not close enough to the car. The car would have to be close enough to an intersection is what I'm trying to say. Yes, that makes totally sense. And not the opposite direction, I'm thinking. Let me think. You would in fact need to be close enough to be able to see some wheel wells, because I can't see an eyewitness seeing that car just randomly off the side of a road any other day of a figuration and pertaining to the day. Like, I just can't see that. That eyewitness possibly had to have been there enough to see, just enough to see, right? As in, you didn't see whoever driving that car a month before or a little bit later, because to see that you seen somebody getting into something is to say you seen it on the same day. Yes, I'm saying. And so the lights have to illuminate some wheel wells, which means you have to be somewhat forward in the nature of being able to be somewhere, whether it's in the opposite direction, whether it's in the same direction, wherever, to see the wheel wells just enough to make it out that there was rust on it. So dear eyewitness, so how are you even seeing that sort of thing? I just completely bypass the FBI, sheriff's county, Burke County, what is it? What is all these counties pertaining to Asia degree? Like, I just took matters into my own hands without them questioning even the eyewitness of what did you see and what didn't you see. Because something about this is totally opposite in a form of direction in itself. Like something is out of line and out of touch with even that. Something don't seem right. Like it's off. The standing witness of the eyewitness testimony somewhere of that is cloudy, as in it's off. Like there's sheer evidence and proof in even that. The make and model description of a car, seeing wheel wells rusted, as in you need headlights for that sort of thing, right? Operating a vehicle. Something is not quite right. And I know I ain't out of touch with reality when I bring this out. No, I can't even be. And ain't no cannabis standing here with me. No, not cannabis the rapper, as the marijuana, the weed, and all else. But something is not right. I just threw cannabis in as just to tie stuff together, right? I don't smoke myself. I don't like to have any substances. Shouts out to people that are users and abusers, but for me on my end, I like to have control, as in being physically able to feel as well as sense. I myself touching things. When I feel this ink pen, I want to know that it's there, as in being able to feel and sense the direction of my hand picking it up. I don't like to be behind any car walking down any street, because see, even people get killed in that. Being on substances, yes, driving, floating in midnight air, whatever. And I don't mean spaceship, but something don't seem right. As in it's telling. That is so strange. Let me make sure I'm not putting this ink pen in my mouth the wrong way, because I'm thinking ink poisoning would in fact contribute to this on my end. Something don't seem right. Let me pause for a minute and try to make sense of that. I don't know. Could a legal, hold on, could a legal or what is it word for it? Uncontrolled substances played a part in possibly Asia Degree's demise? Because something is not right. Because remember, I spoke on the parents, didn't I? I spoke on that. Hopefully they're able to forgive me if I'm wrong in that. But see, this is my thing. Anytime a parent has a child and something happens, you can't get mad at somebody that wants to walk up with possibly clues to try to pick and decipher. This here is a mess. What could have happened, and even that, because see, an individual like me will more likely try to help out in the case, whether I put the blame on the parents or not. You see what I'm saying? There will have to be possible forgiveness, or even the parents on their end, even if I make them bitter and angry, and even that, because I had to be a caring enough adult to even walk up to this case and say, you know what, something is not right, even if the parents had something to do with it, or even if they didn't. Even if a drunk driver, somebody that was smoking weed, driving down, because people do that sort of thing, which is why I questioned the neighbor. Remember when I stated about the neighbor, like, what is going on with this neighbor? What is wrong with the neighbor is what I'm trying to say, and what is wrong with me in question? Yes, I bet many viewers are like, what is wrong with this child? The GOAT? Yes, me, myself, because I ain't even 40 years old, and I was a baby back then when Asia came missing. But I'm sure many of y'all's like, what is wrong with this individual taking the time to question every single angle? Because that's what I do, right? But the neighbor, something about the neighbor on the father's 911 call didn't make sense. As in, where was that neighbor going? See, ask deeper questions, because see, even that neighbor that supposedly came out and told Asia's dad that they seen Asia at 6 something in the morning, despite the girl going missing and eyewitnesses saying that they seen her at 3:34, 5. No, they said they seen her at 3:30, but I still put in 4 or 5 with it, right? For this neighbor eyewitness to say that they seen seen Asia walking down the road, they seen a child walking down the road, is to question that neighbor, which I did. Because see, something about that is telling, as well as in where were you going, dear neighbor? Could the neighbor have been high on substances? I want to say uncontrollable substances or something in that form and fashion. But you know what I'm speaking on. Taking it upon yourself to be driving illegally with, say, substances that affect the mind, as in alter the mind as you're driving down a dark, dusky road. Doesn't North Carolina get dark and dusky? I'm gonna have to even look that up, because I said before my grandfather lived there, and yet I don't go there quite enough to even understand that, the configuration. Could North Carolina Highway 18 get dusky? Pitch black and dusky. And say somebody's smoking something or drinking some illegal substance or something, as even a bottle or something else in the car, and them putting away the matter, or even that, say, hitting a child, even possibly a neighbor, and calling out a description of a car that may or not be there, as in may or may not have been there, just to cover their own scheme of the operation of them operating a vehicle up under, yes, false pretense of the form and fashion of being high on something. The neighbor. That's because, see, this is why I have to take the time to sit down like I'm CNN news reporter or whatever else, because didn't I say I served in mass media? That's just as common logic sense. Something is off right here. Where I'm sitting at, something is completely off and strange and odd, as well as bizarre, and even that. Something is off. Something is completely off about the wheel well. Didn't I say that how many times? How are you making out a model vehicle of a car going at such impact, a speed, in the rain, dark and dusky? If that's even a term, dusky. I would know. But I don't know if it gets like that in North Carolina. Something just don't seem right. And I can't edit this video. I want you to see how human I am. See, some of these people, as I stated before, they get to editing their video and taking out stuff, and then it don't even seem lifelike. It looks more mechanical, I'm saying, because I create music. Matter of fact, I've been known to do everything. Everything. Music maker, everything. So I know when something looks too mechanical, and even that, as in the sound or even the video. It helps to leave certain things there to show that while you're thinking that something don't seem right, is to in fact say that it don't seem right. The motion of the vehicle. You pull up to an intersection, depending on how you're pulling up to the intersection, dear eyewitness. But what is in fact lighting up this vehicle in which Asha get into? What is in fact making it bright enough for even you to see that sort of thing? If you came to a standstill halt in the angular fashion, what is going on with that? Because if no light post, let me go back and repeat right quick. I'm good for that one, dear God, universe, whatever you choose to believe in. But to say something enough is to represent clarity, and even mass media knows that, as in the working in mass media. So if you are in fact away from the car, boom, dead end, maybe. But say to see something and say Asha is in fact on your left side as you're pulling up, then your headlights will more than likely not be flashing on that car as she's making her way. Your lights would in fact be glowing up the woods right in front of you. Your headlights would in fact be glowing up something in front of you and not the car. If say Asha was getting into a car, you right here sitting at the intersection, right? This is your left side. You're the driver. So the car that Asha will be getting into would be, you can't see this, it's in reverse, right? You would in fact be looking at her from out the left side, as in the driver's side. And she would in fact, because that's angle in that. That's in fact box angle. That's in fact box angle. You're looking out the driver's side of your door, possibly window, as the rain is coming down with no windshield wipers on that side of your driver door. And you're looking at a young 9-year-old child make her way into that vehicle. she's going to be on the same side as you. If you haven't turned yet, she's in fact going to be, because see, depending on that intersection, if that was an eyewitness at an intersection, I'm just coming from all angles as I stated before, you would in fact be turning left or right. But say if Asia is leaving home and you're at that intersection at Highway 18, depending on what side of the road you were on, Asia might more likely will be on the same side of you as in her door. Her door, if that eyewitness opened up their left door and Asia opened up her right door, they're in fact on the same side, and yet they're not. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Because for somebody to be on the passenger side and you to be on the driver's side is to know there's angle in that. See this? This will the right here. Right here will be the driver coming up to the intersection, and then Asia right here would in fact be her passenger door. So that's an angular right there, as in you being fully be able to see. But if no light is there, then how are you seeing in the first place? That don't make sense. That does not make sense. And if you don't understand what I said, rewind that back so you can make sense of what I said. How two doors would in fact meet if they're open, side to side. If Asia was in a car, getting into a car, and say the driver, hold on. Say if Asia was getting into that driver's car, whoever the Lincoln, and she's in the passenger side going away from home, and the eyewitness pulled up at the intersection. Once again, it still meet door to door. Can you see that? It will still meet door to door. The driver door as well as the passenger door of Asia will meet. And that's how he will be able to see if that is a child or not. Soon as she swing the door open on her side, because remember, he's on her side. He just need to make a left or right turn as she's going possibly away from home, right? That makes totally sense. And you the viewer, to even work out your analytical critical skills, you could even reverse that of what I stated. I can go on all type of directions with this, is what I'm trying to say. How many times have I stated that? Depending on what this eyewitness may have saw or may not have saw. Because see, that's a big clue in all of this. Solving the case as in the eyewitness. The eyewitness. I ain't even got to be there on nobody's scene, next to nobody's car, to even do just that, because I'm right here seeing all possibly as it played out, or maybe it didn't. Because to be able to move in all different directions and angles visually is to just go, for my mind to wrap all around both cars of the eyewitness, as well as whoever could possibly been the driver getting Asia in the car, as well as the moonlight if it was there, as well as the darkness, as well as the woods, as well as Highway 18 as in this direction or that direction. I'm able to wrap my brain around all that. Let me tell you. Which is why some people can't, the average can't hold a conversation with me, because I'm like, look, are we going to talk about whatever? Make it informative and not petty. I'm not going to argue with anybody, even in that sort of thing, right? I'm all about solving in life. Hell, even Oprah Winfrey is about solving. Do you see her anywhere arguing with people? I don't think so. She just keep walking in her direction of where she's building things and going on, because life is about solving anyway. Yes, I think too much, I know. As I've been stated. But see, even that gives me energy. You know what? In fact, me thinking too much, in fact, gives me some form of life in itself, as it energizes me. I wouldn't have to get paid for any of this type of thing, as in solving trying to solve an Asia degree case. I don't care about money and that, and people get pissed off of that. What you want? I don't want any of. I'm too busy. See, the fun and all is the fun and all in solving the mystery and all that. Because you never know when something is gonna hit you lifelike in the form of a problem, and you're gonna have to break that sort of thing down in order to get through, instead of going up in the corner and laying there trying to figure out, well, how am I gonna get myself out of this mess? It helps taking critical skills. That should be exciting, but for many people it's not. The eyewitness. Somebody need to ask that eyewitness, and only FBI can do that, whether that eyewitness, possibly male or female. For it to be that time, I could see more so a male being out at that time, eyewitness. I can. And I don't know why that is. I could see more so a male being out at that time, or when they spotted Asia, more so than a male. I mean, more so than a female. Because, see, if a woman is working third shift or something like that, then I can see, then she's forced to go out in the dark. But I really can't see a woman being out in that night air at that time just enough to be making models and all that other stuff of a car. I don't see that. Women a lot of times are more likely at home in the bed. Because even they know rapists get down and prey on all type of individuals at that time, right? So I'm thinking maybe the eyewitness was a man. And possibly had to be, or something. I could be wrong in that. Because, see, even for people to take highways like that is to travel. Because me and my mom have been known to travel a lot, right? In my past, I'm saying. And so, still even today, travelers, right? Sometimes you travel on, say, a highway 18, but as I stated before, even in travel going state to state, if you don't want to use the regular highway 18, despite highway 18 not being an actual highway, some people take back roads like that because it's quicker. It is in fact quicker to some people. Even GPS will tell you that, right? And so women will more likely not want to be back on that type of road, because they know that hitchhikers are in fact there. And they don't know what and not only that, they don't know if their car would stop and stall. As in, yes, a woman having to sit out there in the darkness and not being able to see in either field. Women are terrified of that type of thing. As any white, black woman, Mexican, Latino, however, Asian, they would in fact fear that sort of thing. So more likely a woman is not going to be in that environment, Highway 18 like that at that time, to be an eyewitness to see. Unless she's really traveling and need to hurry up and go, or unless she lives right in that environment, making her way home off of work or something. But I don't know why I can just see a male being an eyewitness with the Asia, seeing her like that. Getting to that green car, I don't know why I can see a male species being that individual. Maybe I'm wrong. It's good to be wrong on my end. To have a brilliant mind is to outshine some. But it's good to, in fact, be wrong on my end at times. Yes, it is. Because that shows that I'm a faulty individual sitting here at this camera, and I am, in fact, not a know-it-all, despite me thinking I do sometimes. It's good to be wrong. Yes, it is. Because other people can actually walk up and tell you, well, I considered this, or I whatever. Yes, right? I'm wrong sometimes. That's good. So, how is this eyewitness seeing this child? I think I covered all angles and all bases with that, but I left some angles out to allow you, even the viewer, to even break down that angle example that I just gave you. As you viewing stuff from an opposite direction. Pertaining to where the intersection, if say an eyewitness was there and say they saw her getting into that green vehicle, say if that was in fact the opposite direction and not where I'm coming from in the direction. But Asia still would have to have been on Highway 18. Say I gave you the example of coming from this way going forward, but say that eyewitness was from where you're sitting at coming forward. See what I'm saying? Either way, the eyewitness coming from, say, an intersection point of position, either way, that eyewitness, see, if I come from Asia's angle, as in her getting in the passenger side, and say I'm an eyewitness, using that person for example, the eyewitness, if I'm looking, I'm going to be looking directly at the angle of Asia. I more than likely will see the side of her body as well as see the side of that door and see the book bag, whether it's on her back. But see, lighting even has to be there. How many times have I said that? And if my car isn't pointing in a position of pointing light on that, then how am I seeing her? If no light guidepost is there, I have to repeat on purpose. Because see, we're about to go in the angle of where I let you, the viewer, decide, but I'm going to take you even if the eyewitness was on the opposite direction of, say, not on Asia's side. There's angles. So boom, we put the eyewitness on the opposite direction and him pulling up, say where the driver is in fact sitting. See what I'm saying? Take total smart to think that out. If an eyewitness pull up and say there's an intersection and say they have to turn left or right, because see, to turn in Asia direction is to say your headlights may meet the car of which Asia is getting into if you're turning left, and you can see her, right? Where I stated before, as I go back, if I'm the driver and I see Asia looking out my window and say my eyes meet her body, because remember, she's on the same side, possibly leaving out Highway 18, moving away from home, the direction, right? I'm able to see her, right? But when I turn left, if that eyewitness turned left, depending on how far back that car is away from the intersection, my car might not even light up the hood of the car or whatever. You see what I'm saying? It depends on how far away. But if I'm that close to the car, oh my gosh, I should be able to see the eyewitness. And turning. Let me pause for a second. Let's pause for a second. If that eyewitness took a left turn and Asia is sitting, or not sitting, getting into the vehicle, getting ready to sit in that green car, then the eyewitness, as soon as, if he made the left turn and not a right, if he made the left turn to turn towards the vehicle, depending on how far back that car was from the intersection, Asia getting in the car, if it was even there, right? I don't know specifically. But I'm thinking the eyewitness headlights may or may not illuminated that vehicle in which Asia was getting into, because remember, you got to consider distance. To be something that close to something is to say the headlights would shine on that vehicle which you're turning towards, or it may not. Matter of fact, that vehicle's headlights would in fact be shining on the eyewitness. Does that make sense? Because to make a left-hand turn or even to make a right-hand turn at an intersection is to know somebody's light is going to be shining on the eyewitness and possibly the driver itself, depending on the distance the driver of the car Asia is getting into. That light would in fact light up somewhat the eyewitness, but it depends on how far back the car Asia is getting into, how far back that car is, because if it's too far back, then it's gonna not really light up too much except for what is right in front of it. Because see, to have something pitch black is to know even headlights are gonna be eaten up in that before it makes its way down to the eyewitness if they were at an intersection turning left or right. Darkness would in fact eat up that thing, and if you ever traveled in a tunnel on a train or anything like that, you will be able to see just that. So if you're an eyewitness and you turn left and say that car that Asia was getting into was a little bit too close to the intersection, then more than likely your headlights are not going to light up that car at all. It's just going to light up whatever is in your field, such as the woods, because remember, a car has to make a wide turn and not a short turn, because make a short turn is to end up in somebody else's lane, such as even the possible car that Asia was getting into. So that in fact takes a wide turn, and so to take a wide turn is for your headlights to go with that wide turn. It's going to in fact illuminate like this. See that? The turn is going to shine like that. It's going to shine just like that. And not be shining just on the car that Asia is getting into. See? You got to look at wide turns too with that. As in a vehicle, if there was a stop at the intersection, you have to in fact count that in as well. It sounds counterintuitive, but you got to count that in too, as in how, if the eyewitness made any turns, because I'm boundless on even that, as in the descriptive part that even you should be able to see. If a eyewitness makes a turn, how wide in fact is this turn? It can't be a short turn. It cannot be a short turn. It has to in fact be wide. And headlights in fact follow a turn, and not the other way around. No, it doesn't. Headlights in fact follow a turn, because to be a driver and make a left-hand turn is to know you're the one controlling the vehicle and not the headlights. So the headlights would in fact follow after the turn. It will in fact go along with the turn, but it will more than likely follow after where the driver wants to go. And that, seeming he's the operator of the vehicle, or she, or whoever was the vehicle operator. So, that just, something about that is out of order. It's strange. I said that before, and I repeat on even that. That don't seem right. That's one direction I stated, right? That does not seem right. That don't seem right. The eyewitness account, it doesn't, something is not right. Okay, so let me flip this. I think like a chessboard. Let me flip this. Let's go in the opposite direction of, say, the eyewitness pulling up, right, at an intersection right there, or wherever right there, pulling up, right, and say he's an eyewitness, she, whatever, and there's making out the fact that a young 9-year-old child is getting and making its way, Asia degree, into that green Lincoln Continental, green Ford Thunderbird, whatever. They're watching this from afar, eyewitness, supposedly. If they're at an intersection and say they came to a complete stop just enough to watch it, right? Then the headlights, depending on how far away that vehicle is, the headlights may or may not point on the vehicle. As in, how far away was that vehicle Asia was getting into? How far away was it from the actual intersection? If, say, that played out. Because, see, to put something farther back in distances and know there has to be a light pole, and even that lighting up what you think you saw. And I stated that. But to go in the opposite direction is to state the same thing. Oh, this clock. So, pause. Let me pause. Okay, so if you're an eyewitness and you drive up to an intersection and say you have the potential, that eyewitness, whoever they are, hello, eyewitness, if you pull up to, say, an intersection and say there's possible signs somewhere, maybe, or telling you whether it's Highway 18 or maybe not, who knows, 80, 90, whatever, right, signs, then I'm thinking the car Asia was getting into could have in fact been farther off in the distance. Either left, right? Because see, that's still how, if I put it in the direction of, say Asia Degree's home was back this way, then Asia would in fact be going in the opposite direction, leaving home, right? And so the eyewitness had to have seen that green car either back here or up here, going away from Asia's home. Back here will be like you're almost leaving, as in going away from home, right? But that still marks passenger side in which Asia is getting into the car, and yet an eyewitness wouldn't even be able to make out that if they were at an intersection. The only way an eyewitness could be able to make out if it was a child, because remember, to pull up to something, say an intersection, and be able to see some wheel wells, as if it's rusted, that's the only way you would really be able to see wheel wells, is if you're at an intersection. And I think at 1.3 miles, I could be wrong. Maybe there is or maybe there isn't a intersection right there. See, that is all telling, and I need to speak on even that, as in be a loudmouth, blabbermouth. Despite people getting pissed off, let me do me. Right, so I'm closing in on the eyewitness. Okay, so the eyewitness would, in fact, there would need to be a light somewhere right there. Because see, the only way that, if it's pitch black like that, as it's stated in the details of what I looked up on Highway 18, if it's that pitch black, then more likely no light could have been there, as in Asia making her way into that car, right? The green Lincoln, whatever. An eyewitness more than likely possibly had to turn right just to give enough light to see what that was getting into the car or something. Because depending on how far away in distance the car Asia was getting into, that's a sign as well as to show whether the eyewitness was there or not. The car more than likely may or may not been, I'm saying the car Asia was getting into may or may not have been closer to the intersection, right? So if it's far back and there's no light, then how are you seeing that that's a child? Unless you made a right-hand turn. And in order for you to make a right-hand turn is to know your lights have to go wide as well as in turn, as well as glow up that car. And as you're glowing up that car, not only are you going to be able to see a child halfway, remember, the car is in fact blocking the child. So you would in fact see the wheel wells as well as the driver first as you're lighting up that car, making that right-hand turn on that intersection to turn. Where's all the lights in all this? I'm in question, because I know that it's been known that even intersections hold lights, such as a lamp post, so that you can see the signs that's there, but not all the time. And even those are known to blow out, as in lamp posts on highways at intersections in that area. So if you once again are eyewitness and you're making a right-hand turn, you're going to make somewhat of a wide hand turn, depending on wide, unless you want to go up on a curb, dear eyewitness, because to not turn wide enough is to in fact go boom boom with the curb. That sort of thing can in fact help play out, right? So you're going to take a wide angular turn. And if a car is sitting in an angular fashion away from you and you see that looks suspicious, you are in fact coasting slow enough to see whoever is driving the car. Whoever is driving the car in which Asia is getting into, you're able to in fact see the face of the driver. Because to not be going at full-blown speed in the rain is to know you're just making a turn near the curb, and there's no speed even at play in that. Being able to even look, because see, once you turn a corner, depending on how far away that car is that Asia's getting into in distance, it's to say you're going to have to pick up speed just enough to see the full detail or go about your way, but then possibly meet eyes with, say, possibly the driver as you're doing it. Because you're not going to be able to meet eyes with a child knowing that she was that short stature. Because see, even the top of the car, as in where your head, once you get in the car, that divides the eyes as well, pertaining to detail. Once a child is that short stature getting in a big old car like that, she might be hanging up here as if she got to dip down to get in the car, right? But she could be short, possibly where you can't even see over the car as you're passing. So how are you seeing her? How far away, and I asked that, how far away was she from the car as you saw her getting into the car? See, all that points in the realm of even suspect as well. I'm saying who, as in pointing out who could have done what, because see, to say that somebody seen something, the eyewitness or may not have seen something, that in itself serves a clue as well as in who could have done what and why. People don't think like that, and yet I do. Because if that young child wasn't there and say that was somebody else, then the murder could have taken place in the child's home. And more likely not even in the woods, because who is out at that time? Yes, homeless people have been known to even live in woods. But I don't think just some casual Jack the Ripper is just going to walk up like that and then just bury a bag. A homeless person ain't going to care. More than likely, if a homeless person has something to do with Asha being dead or if she is, right? I'm just giving an example if she is. A homeless person would have not even cared to cover himself because all her clothes would have been strewn. He would have been too busy looking for something. Possibly a meal plan or something, some food. Be able to analyze and scope much more further. That if a homeless, because somebody questioned that, well, could a homeless person have killed her? Well, you got to think that if you're homeless out there living outdoors, you are going to in fact go into a child's bag and be pulling stuff, pulling stuff out in the process to look to see, could there be some meat in the bag? Could there be anything that I can eat? Or possibly some money in the child's bag. You see what I'm saying? Because see, a homeless man or woman is not going to go into a child's bag and then not just have everything strewn every which way like her clothes. More so than a marker in it. He's not going to, or woman or whoever homeless, is not going to cover themselves in that. They're going to leave everything and possibly leave even their fingertips. They might not even care. That's how homeless people care enough to not care. That's what I'm trying to say. Because see, even in that child's wallet, the money would have been gone as well. See, that is in fact telling on whether a homeless person could have did what. Homeless people have been known to kill people because some of them people have a history of drug usage, is what I'm trying to say. And so to see that there's opportunity of making way to take money is to do that even if you're a homeless person, stranger. Killing somebody in the process, right? A homeless individual would in fact have taken the child's whole wallet. Let me tell you, to come from where I come from, knowing that drug environment was all, which is why I left in the first place, right, moved out, it's to say what you're seeing in the process of people killing people in the doors and all that for money. Homeless people as well. Because many of them have drug issues, and if they don't, they still would love to eat. As in have free money, available opportunity in that. So yes, I don't think a homeless person could have did this living out in the surrounding woods or where Asha went missing. I don't think so. They ain't gonna take the time to be covering all this and this and that. Because see, a homeless person more likely is not gonna use gloves, and even that, I can't see them doing that sort of thing. Because to live in woods is to just live like that. Not having homes and equipments available for you to even be going, trying to cover up something. And that, and possibly burying a bag. He would have just possibly threw it somewhere just to get rid of it, probably farther off in the woods and not burying it. And that little whatever, depending on the description of what was in the bag, that, like I said before, it will be everywhere. Because a homeless person is not going to take any chances of covering even that. He's homeless. And many of them run into the police of where homelessness can in fact be considered illegal, maybe or may not living in the woods, right? Some police officers have understanding of some people, homeless people don't have no place to go, yet state to state is different, as in where you can live and where you cannot, right? Whether it's too close to private property and all of that. But a homeless person ain't gonna care, because they're about survival. They would have killed that little girl possibly by accident. I can't really see on purpose unless there was mental illness there. And they would have taken that child's wallet. And that would have been a piece of evidence gone as well. They possibly would have taken it, walked halfway down the street while they were counting the dollars in the thing and threw it to the side. And it would have been away from the shed and not next to it. See what I'm saying? You got to understand, analyze, use your mental resource for what it is. So, the direction of, say, let's go back. The direction of the car. Of that car. If, say, the eyewitness went to go turn left, he would in fact be turning away from the vehicle in which Asia was getting into. Enough not to see if light is there. Or well as see, make out the make of if that was a child or not. Because to know that a big old body as well as a driver is blocking the vision of a child, being able to see her. If you're looking from a distance and you're going to turn left in place of turning right, it's to say, well, maybe the car could have been at the left as the eyewitness was turning. At the left, as in, like I stated in the beginning of the video. To match something is to put it together as in the pieces. So if you were a driver and you came to an intersection, you're going to turn right, a possible car would be sitting there as you're, and this will be that green car Asia's getting into. It would in fact be sitting there, but you're coming and then you're going to turn right because something looks suspicious. No, you're going to turn left. I'm sorry. You're going to in fact turn left and not right. I keep wanting to say right. I don't know what it is. Maybe they turn right. I don't know. But see, even with me, the distance is off. As in the actual leaving. It depends on what angle that they were going. As in, Asia had to be leaving away from home. Moving on Highway 18 in the opposite direction away from the house, right? But I wanted to use that for an example as well. I need to use that as an example as well. Because to see something that could possibly there is to say it possibly wasn't or isn't or something. Something is wrong with that. Whole picture. The eyewitness to leave away from home. Because see, if I use that for an example, what I was stating, where I was going, if I was using that, then let me see. No, I was right. Let's go back. I'm every which way because this whole mess of who did what is every which way. So that in fact would include going in the opposite direction of the house. Let's go back. So if the driver pulled up, eyewitness pulled up, and say Asia then wasn't off in the distance, as in more closer to home but leaving away from home, right? And say the car was right here, the one in which Asia was getting into, it was away from, say, the actual intersection of the eyewitness pulling on, then the car will be sitting like this. Asia will be on the passenger side getting in, and the eyewitness will come and make a turn. And didn't I state before that the eyewitness would either have to pull up behind the car or they would have to go around, as in get in the actual other lane? If that's a 2-lane road, get in somebody else's lane in order to go around. Because to go around is to know sometimes there's markers that show you're not supposed to go around, but people do that type of thing anyways on a country road, rural road. They go around a passing car. That's what they call it. They go around and they cross over those 2 yellow markers which show that you're really not supposed to pass, and then they'll go around the car, say in which Asia is getting in, and get right in front of that car and keep going. Does that make sense or does it not make sense? But depending on how far away the car was that Asia was getting into, how far away it was from the intersection, even that is telling as well. Because to make a left-hand turn and make a wide turn, as I stated before, though I spoke in relation to the opposite direction, I think. But even if I spoke in relation to the same direction, it's to know you're going to make a wide turn coming up where, say, the car is, this being the car that Asia's getting into. You being an eyewitness making that, and you're going to light up the woods, and you possibly might light up the whole back of the car just enough to see the license plate. But you may or may not be able to see the actual side figure of a child. The back of her, the side of her. I don't think you will be able to fully be able to identify the front of her. Because see, to get in the car is to actually stand pointing in the direction of you pointing, getting ready to get in the car, pointing a child will be more or less pointing possibly at the car to get ready to get into the car. But if somebody's pulling up, they will be able to see her body lead side to side. And not the front and the back of her clothing is what I'm saying. They will be able to see side to side to name the description. They will see the side of her body. As somebody stated, she could possibly have had pinstripe overalls or something, pants in her bag. That is in fact how an eyewitness will see a young child's body like that. I'm thinking before she arrive in that car and get into it. You're going to see side to side, but not completely side to side. You're going to only see one side depending on what side that you're driving up on her at. Does that make sense? You're looking at this at an angle like I'm looking at it at an angle. Because if an eyewitness say is at an intersection and they see, well, a child, how are you able to see that? Because see, to be that short is to know the top of that car is going to block, as in where the driver, his head is right up under the top of the car, him sitting in the car. That is going to in fact block the vision of you being able to see whether that is a child getting into the car, depending on the angle. That is in fact going to do that. The back of, if you're coming up, say turning at an angle, right, from the intersection, turning left or right, depending on how far away or how close you are to that car, the back of that car may in fact block your vision being able to see. Unless say you're right behind, you turn and you come up, pulling up right behind as a child is getting in. You will still be only to see somewhat maybe the side of her. The side of her, and I don't really think the front and the back of her, but you will more likely to see the back of her as she's getting in, as in making her way into the car. Because see, angles, the pointing and position of angles, as in where all plays out and what could be seen or not, is to still consider the vehicle, how big it was, how tall it was, how small she was. Pointing position of a vehicle, it has to block certain parts of that young child's body. And I'm thinking if I'm an eyewitness, I would have been able to see that driver, depending on my vision field and which way and manner of me turning, scoping out that car, even at an intersection with headlights, and maybe with a light post or without one. That just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. Don't seem right and it don't sound right. But I think that's all to be said about this video. I think I'm going to end this for now and then make whatever else. Did I question that? If Asia had a babysitter, despite her being a latchkey kid, letting herself in and out, as well as her brother being allowed to let themselves in and out, they were latchkey children. And yet sometimes when parents go to events and all that other stuff, say even on weekends, sometimes they provide a babysitter. Yes, parents do. So I think I'm gonna make a video about that. That's all to be said for now. Consider that, think about that, and hopefully I didn't confuse you in the process.